Let's take a look at major pay decisions. There are a few major decisions in setting extremely competitive pay and designing the corresponding pay structure. Specifically, the employer's competitive pay policy define the purpose of the survey and select relevant market competitors to design the survey. In interpreting survey results, we consult the pay policy line and make sure it reflects external pay policy, and we balance competitiveness with internal alignment. These guideposts are the major decisions you face when designing a pay structure. Translating any external pay policy into practice requires information on the external market. Surveys provide the data for translating that pay into paid levels, paid mix, and structures. A survey is the systematic process of collecting and making judgments about compensation paid by other employers. An employer conducts or participates in compensation surveys for a number of reasons. Some of those reasons include to adjust the pay level to competitors or to establish the price of a pay structure, analyze pay related problems, or to estimate the labor costs of market competitors. Most organizations make adjustments to employees' pay on a regular basis. They can be based on the overall movement of pay rates in the market, on performance, ability to pay, or terms specified in a contract. Adjustments to the different forms of pay competitor use, like base, bonus, stock, and benefits, for example, and the relative importance they place on each form occur less frequently than adjustments to overall pay level. Many employers use market surveys to validate their own job evaluation results. Rather than investigating an internal or external structure, some employers go straight to the market survey to establish internal structure. Accurate market data is increasingly important as organizations move from generic work descriptions that focus on a person's skill as well as the job. Information from specialized surveys can shed light on specific pay related problems. Unusual increases in an employer's turnover in specific jobs may require focused market surveys to find out if market changes are occurring. To better understand how competitors achieve their market share and price their products and services, companies seek to benchmark practices, costs, and so forth against competitors, including in the area of compensation. However, this compensation comparison may have limited value because industry averages may not reflect relevant competitors. To make decisions about pay level, mix, and structure, a relevant labor market must be identified. This may include jobs with the same occupations or skills, employees within the same geographic area, or organizations with the same products and services. Some writers argue that if skills are tied to a particular industry, as underwriters, actuaries, and claims representatives are for insurance, as an example, it makes sense to define the market on an industry basis. While the quantity of data available for international comparisons is improving, using data to adjust pay still requires a lot of judgment. Labor markets are just emerging in some regions. But even with good international survey data, judgment is still required. Traditional companies with unique talent are required unique jobs. When organizations fuse jobs together, they receive diverse knowledge and expertise. Relevant markets may appear more fuzzy markets. Organizations with unique jobs and structures find it hard to get comparable market data. Consulting firms offer a wide choice of ongoing surveys covering almost every job family and industry group imaginable. Designing a survey requires answering the following questions. Who should be involved in the survey design? How many employers should be included? which jobs should be included, and what information should be collected. In most organizations, the responsibility for managing the survey lies with the compensation manager. But since compensation expenses have powerful effects on profitability, including managers and employees on task forces and other work groups make sense. There are no firm rules on how many employers to include in a survey. Large firms with a lead policy may exchange data with only a few, 6 to 10, top paying competitors. In the United States, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, is the major source of publicly available compensation, cash, bonus, and benefit, but not stock ownership data. The BLS publishes extensive information on various occupations. Some employers routinely combine the results of several surveys and weight each survey in its composite according to somebody's judgment of the quality of the data reported. Benchmark jobs have stable job content and are common across different employers. If the purpose of the survey is to price the entire structure, then benchmark jobs can be selected to include the entire job structure. Benchmark jobs are chosen from many levels in each of these structures, as can be matched with descriptions of benchmark jobs that are included in the survey. Three basic types of data typically are requested in a survey. One, information about the organization. Two, information about total compensation system. And three, specific pay data on each incumbent in the jobs under study. Financial data are simply used to group firms by size, expressed in terms of sales or revenues, rather than to analyze competitors' performance. These data are used descriptively to report pay levels and mix by company size. Data on all types of pay forms is required to assess the total pay package and competitors' practices. The greatest challenge of total compensation surveys is to understand how to evaluate the information. In the best total compensation projects, each firm sees the survey as a customizable database project where they can specify the characteristics of the employers and the jobs to analyze. After the survey data are all collected, the next step is to analyze the results and use statistics to construct a market pay line. A common first step is to check the accuracy of job matches and then check for anomalies, like in employers whose data are substantially out of line with data from others. Age the data and then look at the nature of the organization. Summary data help abstract the survey information into smaller number of measurables for further statistical analysis. Variation tells us how the rates are spread out in the market. If an organization's policy was to be in the 75th percentile nationally, that would mean 75% of all pay rates are or at below the point of 25% or above. Because they reflect decisions of employers, employees, unions, and government agencies, wages paid by competitors are constantly changing. Additionally, competitors adjust their wages at different times. The pay data is usually updated, a process often called aging or trending, to forecast the competitive rates for future dates when the pay decisions will be implemented. A market line links the company's benchmark jobs internal structure with market rates paid by competitors, the market survey. Once it's known what other organizations pay for each job, a pay level can be chosen that is a function of what other organizations pay and what role the job plays in executing the strategy of the organization. There is no one right way to analyze this type of survey data. There are several ways to translate external competitive policy into compensation practice. If a company chooses to match a policy, But then it updates survey data at the end of a current year or start of a plan year and keeps this rate in effect throughout the plan year. The company will actually be lagging the market. It will match its desired market pay level only at the beginning of the plan year. The market rates continue to rise throughout the year, and the company's rates do not. An employer who wants to lead the market may age data to the end of the plan year and pay at this rate throughout the plan year. There are alternatives among competitive pay policies, and there are alternative ways to translate policy into practice. If the practice does not match the policy, we can say one thing but do another, then employees receive the wrong message. Another way to translate pay level policy into practice is to simply specify a percent above or below the regression line, the market line, that an employer intends to match, and then draw a new line at this higher or lower level. An employer might lead by including only a few top paying competitors in an analysis and then matching them pay among the leaders, or lead from some job families and lag for others. If the practice does not match the policy, we say one thing and we do another, then employees receive the wrong message. A pay range exists whether two or more rates are paid to employees in the same job. Ranges provide managers the opportunity to recognize individual performance differences with pay and encourage employees to remain with the organization with an expectation their pay will increase over time. From an external competitiveness perspective, the range is a control device. A range maximum sets the lid on what the employer is willing to pay for that work. The range minimum sets the floor. An employee with consistently high performance ratings should move above the market median and range midpoint, whereas an employee who consistently has average performance should stay near the range midpoint. The first step in building flexibility into the pay structure is to group different jobs that are considered substantially equal for pay purposes into a grade. Grades enhance an organization's ability to move people among jobs with no change in pay. Each grade will have its own pay range, and all the jobs with a single grade will have the same pay range. Although grades permit flexibility, they're challenging to design. The objective is for all jobs that are similar for pay purposes to be placed within the same grade. The size of differentials between grades should support career movement through the structure. A managerial job would typically be at least one grade higher than jobs it supervises. Not all employees or employers have or use grades and ranges. Skill based plans establish single, flat rates for each skill level, regardless of performance or seniority. And many collective bargaining contracts establish single, flat rates for each job. Increasingly, broadbands, really large ranges, are being adopted for greater flexibility. Another technique collapses salary grades into only a few broad bands, each with a sizable range. This technique, known as broadbanding, consolidates as many as 4 or 5 traditional grades into a single band with one minimum and one maximum. Because the band encompasses so many jobs of differing values, a range midpoint is usually not used. Supporters believe that broadbands provide flexibility to define job responsibilities more broadly. They foster cross functional growth and support redesigned organizations where employees can move laterally across functions to gain depth of experience. Broadbands are often combined with more traditional salary administration practices by using midpoints, zones, or other control points with bands. Whereas grades use range minimums, maximums, and midpoints to ensure consistency across managers, those using bands only have one total salary budget limiting them. To use banding, first an organization needs to set the number of bands. Usually, bands are established at major breaks or differences in work or skill or competency requirement. Bands must also be priced according to market rates. The challenge is to be flexible without leaving the organization vulnerable to changes of inconsistent practices. A job structure orders jobs on the basis of internal factors reflected in job evaluation or skill certification. The pay structure is anchored by the organization's external competitive position and reflected in its pay policy line. The problem with using two standards, internal and external, to create a structure is that they are likely to result in two different structures. The order in which jobs are ranked on internal versus external factors may not agree. Differences between market structures and rates and job evaluation rankings warrant a review of the basic decisions in evaluating and pricing a particular job. One study of how differences are actually reconciled found that managers weigh external market data more heavily than internal job evaluation data. Sometimes differences arise because a shortage of a particular skill has driven up the market rate, but reclassifying such a job into higher salary grade where it will remain long after the imbalance has been corrected creates additional problems. Creating a special range that is clearly designed as market responsive may be a better approach. Decisions made on the basis of expediency may undermine the integrity of pay decisions. Some organizations adopt pay strategies that emphasize external competitiveness and de emphasize internal alignment. Called market pricing, this approach sets pay structures almost exclusively on external market rates. Market prices match a large percentage of their jobs with market data and collect as much market data as possible. The competitive rates for jobs for which external market data are available are calculated. Then the remaining jobs are blended into the pay hierarchy created by external rates. This is immediately followed by market analysis and pricing for as many jobs as possible. After that, the few remaining jobs are blended and the internal job relationships are reviewed to be sure they're reasonable. Market pricing goes beyond using benchmark jobs and slotting non benchmark jobs. The objective of market pricing is to base most, if not all, the internal pay structure on external rates. However, pure market pricing ignores internal alignment completely. Rather, the internal pay structure is aligned with competitors' decisions as reflected in the market. In a very real sense, the decisions of its competitors determine an organization's pay. In contrast, an organization may choose to differentiate its pay strategy from that of its competitors to better execute its own strategy. The process of balancing internal and external pressures is a matter of judgment made with an eye on the pay system objectives. While differentiating pay strategy from competitors can lead to competitive advantage, the reasons for being different must be clearly reasoned and articulated. Otherwise, being different may only lead to a lack of competitiveness in the market, hindering organization success.